Good evening. I am so glad that y'all are here with us tonight because I have Jeannie Van Hoose, and if y'all just knew, you might actually know because we have tried to get this show put together. I have been out because I have a family member who is doing chemotherapy and such, and friends have been filling in for me. So they have tried so hard to get Jeannie on the air, and we are doing it. We are absolutely putting that woman power to it, and we are going with it.
Woo!
So, Jeannie, I am so glad that you are here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Kat. This is very special. Thank you.
I think it's very special too because somebody that I think the world of thinks the world of you. And I
Oh,
am really thrilled to have you here. And I'm so glad because, the universe works in very interesting ways, as you know.
yes.
And I I really think it's obvious that we were the ones that were supposed to have this conversation.
I, I
So,
I believe you're right. Yes.
yes. And so I'm glad we are.
And here we
Now,
are.
yes, everything works out the way it's supposed to. But before we
Yes.
get kicking, I do want to say that my daughter in love is in the hospital. And she is the reason that I haven't been here for the last few weeks on Wednesday nights because Wednesday is her chemo day, which is new to us. She's been recently diagnosed with breast cancer. And yesterday morning, they had to remove her port
Mhm.
because she had an infection. She had an abscess. And so they had to pull it, which means that she can't have her treatments for a few weeks.
Mm.
And while it heals, to get another one put in. And her name is Brittany. So anybody that has an extra prayer to toss out, a healing to send, we're open. So,
Amen. Amen. God
and
is good all
so
the time.
he is. And this is a young mom. My grandsons with this side are 11, 7, and 5 months.
Oh,
So that makes it a little bit different,
yes, it does.
because mom is the leader, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things. And we will get past this because she's already been blessed so much through
Amen.
all the things going on. This is just a slight hiccup. And there
Yes,
was
it
a
is.
reason for it.
Yes.
Even though I don't understand it and I'm a control freak, so that gives me issues. And that's just one of those things. But God knew it when He made me. So none of us are perfect.
That's
Although
right.
there have been moments where I was maybe a little closer than now. So there you
Hmm.
go.
Yeah.
But how are you? I'm just so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Kat. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I want to thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming because you could have given up. So thank you for not doing that.
I'm not a quitter.
No, no, you are not. And you're just really cool. And
Oh, thank
so
you.
and not only that, you've been an elementary school teacher.
Yes.
So my my hat's off to you. My daughter does that. And
Thank
I don't
you.
see
Thank you.
how y'all do it because she's
Mhm.
I don't know how many years in she is, but
Right.
she is very brave and strong because I have been to her classroom as a guest yesterday.
Oh, okay.
She's a pre-K.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
yes,
My
she
hat
is
off
training them.
for for kindergarten teachers.
Yeah,
It's a very, very a blessed job, but very difficult because you are the starting teacher. You're laying the foundation.
yes. And you're teaching them what to do in their classroom. And
That's correct. Yes.
I would rather do a really difficult ghost hunt than teach
That's,
pre-K.
that's
Yeah,
funny. That's
so
funny. Well,
it's
funny that you
difficult.
mentioned that. I've been a teacher. Now I'm retired. Woohoo! let's hear for a
Woo, go
retirement.
you.
I'm so
Yes.
excited. And, but I taught for many, many years and very blessed to have taught with some wonderful educators
Mhm.
and had the most beautiful children. Some of them were challenges, but we got through it. And,
Absolutely.
but, you would be surprised how haunted schools are.
Oh, I
They,
know, but
yes,
we
I
have
had a
some
few,
very haunted schools here.
yes, I had a few things happen to me in my classroom. And
Really?
my students, of course, were very shocked by what happened. And right away, they look at me to see my reaction and what
Right.
I have to say and how I'm going to explain it to them. And of course, you cannot talk about the paranormal in school. And so I always blamed it on the maintenance work that was being done at the school, bad pipes, old
Right.
building. I was always able to come up with some explanation that seemed to put them at rest. And, but there was one that I did have a difficult time trying to explain, and that was when a chair flew off the top of a table. And it
Come on.
just flew across the room, and I had three students in the classroom at the time. The rest of them were at PE, and I had them in there because they had been absent and they had to make up some work. And so I asked the coach if I could keep them that day, and the coach said, absolutely, we want to, we want our children to be successful, and we don't want them to get behind. And so I had them in there, and they were catching up. They had their Chromebooks out. They were catching up on some of the work that I had assigned. And as they were quietly working, and I was just sitting at my desk, and I was catching up on emails. Um, I looked up, I heard something rattling, and they did too. And you could hear it rattling like it was hitting the table. And we all looked up, and as we did, this chair flew across the classroom.
Holy
And
cow.
we just all kind of sat there, and their mouths were wide open and their eyes were as big as saucers, and they looked right at me. I had no explanation why that chair flew off the table.
Did you
And
try?
and so my students called me Miss V. And so they said, Miss V, what was that? Why did that chair fly off the table? And it didn't slide off the table and land right by the table. It flew to the middle of the classroom.
Holy
And
cow.
and I said, I have no idea what caused that. I said,
Triggers.
there are
It was
sometimes
triggers.
I said, sometimes there are mysterious things that happen that we can't always explain. And so I quickly redirected them and got their
Right.
mind back on what they were doing. And I just kind of said, it's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Things happen.
But what are you
And
going to
I
do, right?
what are you going to do? And then I quickly redirect and I said, oh, you know what? Let's go back and let me go over those words that you're going over. And let's talk about, the definitions and, whatever they were doing at the time. I had a segue into getting their attention off of what happened in the
Hmm.
classroom. And so,
Well,
yeah, I had several
wow.
things happen. I even had a picture fly off a wall. I had some books fly off of bookshelves. It's all the time. You would be so shocked at how haunted some of these schools are,
Yeah.
and I have no explanation for it because some of these schools were old, and a lot of things
Hmm.
happened during that time. It could have been the land that the school was built on. The land was already
Absolutely.
haunted.
Yeah.
Who knows? And so
Well,
you
there's
just protect your children and go on.
Yes. Well, a lot of times, because a friend of mine was a middle school principal, and I have been a substitute, so I've taught in a new elementary school, an old middle school, and a really old high school. And then they built a new facility that merged the junior and high school, and then the new high school was built. But it was, I mean, those old buildings were very interesting.
Oh,
And I had, it was, I would not have believed about schools had I not experienced things. And then I had a
mhm.
guest on that taught in another district here, and he, I can't remember what his position was, but he would be in the school very early, and there would be activity everywhere. And I was just like, oh, not
Mhm.
seven there. I'm not seven
Yeah.
there. But it was
Yes.
enough
Mhm.
to be in the schools that my kids were in where I subbed had been segregated schools at one time.
Mhm.
And,
Okay.
you know, so then they weren't,
Yes.
which was always an interesting time when those emotions came together. My dad was a Special Forces Green Beret here in Birmingham during the Civil Rights era,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was really a tough time. And my dad was an ultra liberal, and
Mhm.
for him, this was a very, because we had my dad worked volunteered at the Alabama School for the Deaf and Blind, and
Oh,
that
wow.
was a very primarily Black facility at
You're right.
that time. We were
Mhm.
always there. If we needed to hire someone, that's where we hired from, to give somebody who was handicapped a chance to make a living. And,
Right.
whether it was household help or if he needed somebody to do what he did. At one time, he was a parole officer. At one time, he was a hospital administrator. And then he wound up being, you know, bigger than that. And it was just kind of like we always had a, a deaf woman working at our home, which was interesting because she would be there alone with me and the phone would ring. I was like four,
Oh, yeah.
right? Four
Oh,
and
wow.
five. I wasn't in school yet. So
Okay.
that was an interesting time because I would just have to, telephone, and she would
It's
get,
right.
oh, you know, and so I was like, she had to hand me the phone because it was like, so, but that was a very haunted facility too.
Oh,
It's,
I can
it's
imagine.
a, yeah. And it's still there. It's
Mhm.
still a beautiful structure, but because we used to go every Sunday, go out there
Mhm.
and have lunch on the grounds with everybody and, talk with everybody. And, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
is I knew sign language. My dad taught me sign language and stuff. I was
Mhm.
not very good at it and I didn't retain it, but I can do it if I have to. But it was crazy how active that place was, and probably still is. I haven't been in there.
Mhm. Well, if you'll talk to the janitors stayed there late at night. And some of our janitors did not like working late at night. They would stay there sometimes until 10 o'clock, and it would just be them. And they
Mm.
could tell you some stories. And
And what was the biggest one?
they said that they could in the gymnasium was not too far. It was like at one end of the building, and then all the classrooms were built up towards the office. So just imagine the office was on one end of the building, and then the gymnasium was on the other. And
Okay.
each janitor was like assigned a hallway. So you're talking maybe three janitors in the school at that time. And one janitor reported that while they were working and it was very quiet because it's just them, they could hear cheering in the gymnasium. And it sounded like there were a whole bunch of people in there, like they were having a pep rally. And of
Wow.
course, they're hearing this and it piques their interest. And so they have to go to look because they're thinking, well, nothing was scheduled and the parking lot's not full of cars and there are no parents and there's no children. So, what could possibly be going on? And even the coaches, sometimes the coaches would have practice after school. There were no coaches having any practices at that time.
Oh, wow.
And so they went down there and it was completely empty. No one was in the gymnasium. And these janitors,
Wow.
they did not like working late at night because of that reason. And
It's a solid reason.
yeah, and they said it scared them that they didn't like it. But that was just one of their stories.
Mm.
There were other stories where a cart that they had that they used to move and clean rooms, um, it moved on its own, and it wasn't on a floor that was sloped or had an incline to it. It was a flat floor, and they left the cart outside the classroom, go in to do what they have to do, spray, dust, whatever they're doing at the time. And they come back and the cart's been moved down at the end of the hallway. And
That would be
so
so freaky
it
when you're
would.
alone.
And if you, I'm sure of course, I didn't ask the principal to do that, but I'm sure that if you ran those cameras back, because, the schools are all under security and they've
Mhm.
got security cameras. I bet if you ran that back, you would have gotten some great paranormal activity watching that
I
card
bet you
go
would.
all the
Wow.
way back down by itself to the end of the hallway. And
Wouldn't
so,
that be so interesting?
yes, it would be, because I'll tell you what, if I could do a show, I would do one on haunted schools.
Hmm.
And that would be, to me, that would bring a lot of interest. I'll give you, for instance, what happened to me one time, another interesting
Please do.
experience. It was during the STAR test. And during the STAR test, your students are in the classroom. It's supposed to be quiet. You have a few teachers out in the hallway who are patrolling. And when you let a child out, they are aware of this child and they watch the child go to the bathroom, and then they watch the child come back. And you're only supposed to allow one student at a time to go to the bathroom during this STAR test, a state
Right.
mandated test. And they let the teachers go too, and then they'll put one of those teachers out in the hallway. They'll put one of those teachers in there to watch the classroom while the teacher's gone. So this one particular time, I had to go. And so I open up my door and I peek my head out and I wave at one of the teachers, and and she knew immediately that I needed to leave the room. And so she comes quietly into my room. Kids are taking this test, and I go down to the students' bathroom. I didn't go to the teachers' lounge because I didn't have time. So I used the children's facilities. So I go into this children's bathroom, and I'm all by myself in there, I thought. So I go into one of the stalls, and I know I'm in there by myself. And I go in there,
Mhm.
and I've got to do this quickly because I got to get back to the room. And
Right.
I go in the stall, and I hear a child crying, and the child is whimpering, and I can hear her going. And she was in one of the stalls, and I said, sweetheart, this is Miss V, are you okay? She didn't answer me. I said, sweetheart, it's okay if you're afraid or the test is too much for you, it's overwhelming, I understand, please let me help you. Not another word. So I'm thinking, okay. I said, I really would like to, if you'll tell me your teacher's name, I'll go to your teacher and tell her that you're in here. And she went, so I walked out of the stall and I started looking under each one of the stalls to see if I could see feet. And I was going to knock on the door. Well, I didn't see any feet in any of the stalls. So then I thought, well, maybe she's standing on top of the toilet, because sometimes we would have students that would get out of class and they would want to go to the bathroom, and then they'd go play in the bathroom. And then if they heard somebody come, they'd stand up on the toilet so nobody could see their feet.
Right.
And so I thought maybe she was standing up on the toilet. So I went to each stall, and the other stalls were not being used. And I opened the door. I said, sweetheart, I'm coming. And I'm opening the door. As I'm going down, there wasn't a child. There wasn't anyone in that bathroom. I was all alone.
And how
And
did
I'm
you
telling
feel?
you, that made an impression on me.
I'm sure.
And so I walked out of there and I thought, I just had a paranormal experience. And this was a child whimpering in the bathroom. But there was no child.
Can you
So
imagine how traumatized that child had to be for that residual to still be there?
yes,
I wonder what had
that's
happened to him.
exactly right. And I agree with you 100%. It was residual.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it just got caught in that loop of time, in that environment at that time. And I just happened to catch it, I guess. But I've always had a lot of paranormal experiences ever since I was a child. I started having this at a very, very young age. My daddy was in the military. I'm an Army brat. Go Army! And my daddy was a
Well,
military man, and we were
I
stationed
don't
at
know
Key
what
West,
just
Florida.
happened. I
Huh? Hello, Kat.
Jeannie to spin back in. There she comes. Hey.
So we were stationed, my daddy was stationed at Key West, Florida. And so my mother's a
Oh,
school
that's me.
teacher, and my mother is, she's teaching school, and I'm going to elementary school, and I have a baby sister. And so at the time I'm young, I don't know anything about the paranormal. My parents never talked about that. And, and so I would hear children playing at night outside my window. And I'm asleep. I'm supposed to be asleep. And I can hear laughter, and I can hear children talking and playing. Well, that was very common at a military housing facility, because there was lots of military children. But late at night, and I would raise up from my bed and I would look out the window, because I'm thinking, who's out there playing? I want to be out there. And I'd look out the window. There wasn't a soul out there. So I thought, well, I must have missed them. They must have run off. So I laid back down and I heard them again. And this time I jumped up immediately because I was going to catch them. And I looked out the blinds. There wasn't anybody there. So the next morning, I told my mother, I said, Mom, there were kids playing outside my window last night. And I said, but every time I looked, I couldn't see them. And she says, oh, it was just your imagination. You were probably dreaming. I said, no, Mom, I was wide awake. I was very wide awake. I said, no, I wasn't dreaming. And she said, but yeah, you've got an imagination that's really wide, Jeannie. And she says you're an old soul, and she says, you're way beyond your years, and being, you know, as precocious as you are, things like this happen. And I bought it from her. I said, okay, Okay, because I loved my mother. My mother was my best friend all my life until she died 6 years ago, and I took it, you know, for what she said. I said, okay, and I never thought another thing about it. But I continued to have things happen, and when they did, I just thought, well, that's just my imagination. I I must be hearing things or imagining things, and until I got older. And when I got older and wiser and still continue to have these experiences, I knew that now it wasn't my imagination, it wasn't child's play, it was really something. And then I realized that my mother must have been gifted, and my grandmother must have been gifted, and I received those gifts as well. And my mother was protecting me because I remembered when my mother was born in the 30s, and my grandmother was born
Right.
around the turn of the century, and you didn't talk about things like that. That was considered taboo. You never talked about
We could get in
seeing
trouble for that.
spirits. That you would be ostracized. You would be
Yeah.
known as the town kook, and people would not have anything to do with you if you said, "I see ghosts." This person's crazy. We're going to stay away from this person, and they would keep their children away from you. They wouldn't want their children to play with you or go to your house. And so
Yes.
back then, it was you didn't talk about that. That was forbidden. And
It was.
my mother was protecting me, is what she was doing, and she didn't want me to be aware of it. She didn't want me to know about it. She thought that by telling me it was my imagination was the best course to take at that time. And I appreciate my mother doing that. Honestly, I really do. But then as I got older, I continued to have things, and that's when I got into the paranormal. I thought, okay, there's something going on here, and I want to make sure that I'm not the only one doing that's having this happen and seeing these things and these things happening to me. There's got to be other people that are having this kind of experience. And
Yes.
that's when I started reaching out. I had to be very careful because number one, I was a school teacher, and I had a reputation to uphold as an educator, and I had to be very careful who I let know this about me. And so I had to choose very carefully who I told, and luckily I was able to find some other teachers who were also having experiences and had been since they were children, and so we found each other. And now that it's open and more people are able to come out and talk about it, now we can expose ourselves and say, no, I'm not crazy, these things are happening.
We're not about
Spirit,
this.
yes.
I know, right?
uh,
It's a
yeah,
big deal.
spirits are alive and well. They're around us. They're all over the place. And some of us attract them. They're attracted by us. And I was told by a psychic medium that I had an aura, a very bright aura, which is part of the
Yeah.
reason why I attract them. And I was asked, can you see auras? No, I can't see a person's aura. I can't. I don't have that ability. But I'm empathic. I'm a sensitive. I feel things. They touch me. Sometimes I'll see them, which is very scary to me because honestly, I don't want to see them because
Well,
it's
I
frightening. And
understand that. I mean, I don't want to see a death state. I mean, I actively do not want to see a
right,
death state. And
right,
that seems to be what people want to share with you.
right,
And I do
exactly.
not like that.
No, and I'll tell you if you want me to tell you my most compelling. I was living
Please.
in I was living in El Paso, Texas, and I purchased a home that had a beautiful swimming pool, and the backyard was absolutely gorgeous and had a park-like setting. It was absolutely the most beautiful backyard. I actually bought the house for the backyard and the pool.
I understand that. Yeah.
Oh, it was so beautiful, and it was an adobe home with a terracotta roof, and from the backyard you could see the mountain range of El Paso, and it was absolutely breathtaking. It was beautiful, and I thought it was odd that I got the house for a really good price. I mean, it was rather
Oh.
cheap for the area.
Oh.
And it was in a high end area, and that's why I fought so hard for it, because I thought I'll never buy a house with this kind of a deal ever again. So
Right.
I'm gonna buy it. And of course, they do the sale on you. Well, there's people in front of you. Somebody's already made an offer. Of course, I jumped on it and I said, "Yeah, I want this house. It's gonna be mine." And so
Yeah.
lo and behold, I got the house. As soon as I moved in, I started having paranormal activity off the chart. A china cabinet, antique china cabinet, the door was always opened when I'd get up in the morning, and it was locked, because if I didn't lock it, it would automatically open on its own. So I had to keep it locked. And
Oh.
when I would find it open, I would go to see, and the lock had been turned. And I'm thinking, well, I'm the only one in here. How is this happening? How is this china cabinet coming open? And I was a skeptic, and I believe in debunking first. So I'm
Yeah.
going to debunk it before I call it paranormal. So I'm going to do everything. Is the floor uneven? Uh,
Right.
is it airplanes flying over, vibrating the house? I mean, I was trying to come up with
Vibrating the lock open. I
any
know,
kind of
though. I
excuse,
know. I get it.
and it continued to happen. Another night, I was sitting up watching TV, and I love to have the lights out because I feel like I'm in a theater. So I turn off all the
Yes.
lights, and I'm sitting there watching this really good movie, and a lamp turns on by itself. Well,
Get
what's
out.
unusual about this lamp turning on by itself, the chain has to be pulled.
No.
There,
Oh my gosh.
turn on. Well, of course, being a little skeptical and wanting to debunk, I thought, okay, it must have been electrical problem. So I look at
Mhm.
the outlet. I plug other things in. I do all kinds of debunking. There was no debunking this. So then I had an old Victrola, the kind that you wind up with the old record, and it's the only way it'll play is that you got to wind it up, and
Girl.
uh, it played by itself. Now it didn't play a
Oh my
record
gosh.
because you have to pick the arm up and place it on the record. That's not what was happening. I heard this noise, and I could hear. And I thought, what in the world is that noise? And so I'm investigating in the house, and I walk around and I'm going towards where that noise is. It's coming from the Victrola. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, there is no way. And I
Oh my
lifted up
word.
the lid, cat. I lifted up the lid, and that turntable was spinning like this.
Oh my word. Oh gosh.
Oh my God. As soon as I saw that, I dropped that lid. I thought, oh no, this can't be, this can't be happening.
But you
I
didn't
cannot.
run from the house, so that's good.
I didn't run from the house, no, but I knew that there was something going on in the house. So at the time, I had a beautiful little dog, and he was a schnauzer. And being an
Oh,
English
we are.
teacher, I named him Hamlet. And so after Shakespeare's play Hamlet, so I named him Hamlet, and Hamlet was my best friend. He was my child. He did everything with me. We went everywhere together, and so this one particular night, I had a teacher's meeting the next morning, so I had to go to bed early. So I'm in the bed and I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'm a bit restless because I really don't like those early morning teachers meetings. I'd prefer to have them after school. And so I'm lying there and I'm thinking about, why did my principal call this meeting? You know, why so early in the morning? And all of a sudden I heard a giggle, and I rolled over, and I was on my side, and I rolled over. And when I rolled over, Hamlet was at the foot of my bed. That's where he slept, at the foot of my bed. When I rolled over, his little head was up, ears perked up, turned back, and he's looking at something. I looked to see what he's looking at, and there was a child. There was a little girl standing there, and I could see through her. And she's standing there, and I can see her little fingers over the footboard of the bed. And she's not looking at me. She's looking at Hamlet, giggling, and she's looking at him. And I could see the little bow in her hair. I could see like a little blouse, little cute little blouse she was wearing with buttons. Just adorable. But I knew she wasn't real. She was see-through. I could see through her, but she was an absolutely beautiful child. And it scared me so bad. I rolled back over and I started saying, "Dear God, please make it go away. Make it go away. Please, God, make it go away. Make it go away." I was scared out of my mind. And my hair stood on end. I was paralyzed with fear. Blood was running cold through my veins. I just could not believe. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, honestly. I thought I was going to lay there and die. And I laid there and I said my prayers, and then I waited a few minutes, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to take a look. I hope she's gone. And I rolled over and she was gone.
Yeah.
Regardless, needless to say, I couldn't go back to sleep that night because I knew what I had just witnessed, what I had seen. And Hamlet saw her, and Hamlet didn't bark at her. Hamlet barked at everything. He didn't bark at her.
She wasn't a threat.
And I think that while I was at school every day, she was Hamlet's playmate. And that's why he didn't bark at her.
Yeah, he knew.
And I'm telling you, that was the first time I'd ever laid eyes on a ghost. And it scared me. Now, all the other things I had as a child, they were things that, like noises, touching, bruises on my legs, seeing something in the corner of the room, and then it's not there anymore. But I never actually saw a real spirit right there in front of me. And I saw this little girl. So, being the school teacher that I am, and being highly involved in the paranormal, I thought something happened to this child at this house. And when I bought this house, it wasn't disclosed. And by law, you have to tell the buyer if somebody died in the house.
You have to do that here too.
Yeah, you've got to tell them. And because it really would have made a difference. I don't think I would have bought the house had I known a child had passed in that house. So I decided to go and investigate. So I went to the courthouse, and I wanted to look at the property. I wanted to look at court records. I wanted to look and see who else had owned the home. And long story short, I found out that the beautiful pool, that the reason I bought the house was she drowned in that pool. And that's who the little girl was. There was a drowning in the pool. And had I known that, I wouldn't have bought the house. I couldn't have done it. couldn't done because it's involving a child, you know, and fairly recent.
But
And so
in her past, but in her afterlife, you actually brought her a lot of joy
I
because she
did.
loved Hamlet.
Yes, she
So
did.
I think that maybe that's why you were supposed to have that house.
I agree.
Because
Yeah,
I think that I think that spirits can manipulate an environment like that. And
I agree.
the reason maybe that you felt so feisty about this was going to be your house
Hmm.
was because you were being led there.
I agree,
And you
Kat.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
and if you had known and wouldn't buy it, then she wouldn't have had somebody that would have been compassionate, maybe.
Yes, I
And as
agree
it
with you
was, she had a
100%.
lovely little dog to play with, and she had
Hmm.
somebody that loved the house, maybe like she had loved it, and she had a mommy
Hmm.
figure,
That's right. That's
even if you
exactly
didn't
right.
know it,
And
But
and
I
one other
think
thing
that,
one other thing that happened in the house, I had a baby grand piano, and it was an antique baby grand piano, and just beautiful. Oh my gosh, I had traveled all the way to Hammond, Louisiana to get this this
oh my
baby grand
gosh,
piano.
that's
It's
a
so
ride.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It was had it delivered, had it set up and everything. And um I would hear that piano play at night. Now, not beautiful music like, a concert pianist
Scales,
playing.
right?
I could hear ting, ting, I could hear the keys. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking that can't be Hamlet because Hamlet's right here in the bed with me. What is doing that? I even thought rodents. I thought if I've got rodents in this house,
Oh,
I'm calling exterminator
that would be worse
tomorrow.
than a ghost. That would be worse than a ghost.
But see
Seriously.
that's why I try to debunk before I
Mhm.
go to the paranormal because I want to make
Sure.
sure that I'm right on this and
Mhm.
that I'm not making anything up. Or I'm making myself think that, or making myself see that. That's this. I have to make sure I know what happened. And
Yeah.
that's what I do as a paranormal investigator. And I have a team, and my team is Beyond the Veil Paranormal Research Group. And we're based out of
Yeah.
Texas. And very proud of my team and my members. I have some awesome members. And for your viewers, please check out our page and look us
Absolutely.
up. And I'm also a member of Teal Gray's Para Hunters,
Mhm.
but we only get together for the Halloween celebration in Denton, Texas, and
Which is
they
huge.
no, it's huge, and we absolutely love it. We love it. And Teal lives in Denton, and she has done so much for volunteering her time and working very hard for with Denton. That's her home. That's where she loves to live, and so she's a very big supporter of Denton, Texas, and she's written a
Yes, she
book called
is.
Haunted Denton.
Yes.
And some of the places where we go, like the Emily Fowler Library in Denton, Texas, and some of the cemeteries, these are all in her book, and very active town. So I can see how Denton won the title of most haunted town in Texas, and
Yes.
they won the title of the Halloween town. So they will be holding all the big Halloween celebrations in Denton for the next 10 years. And so
Well,
we are a team that works with Denton, and we work with the Ghostbusters of Denton, and we have so much fun. We love it, and so this is a shout out to Denton, Texas, and their Halloween celebration coming up in October.
that is a huge celebration because
Yes, it
Teal and
is.
I have, um, when she was organizing it, I think 2 years ago, we had a big discussion about that, and I was really surprised. I did not realize that this was such a huge thing. And
Oh,
she's like, "Well, you should come out here and you should do this." And I'm like, Texas. I can't
Yeah,
get to Denton. And it's
we
so
do
funny
everything
because
big in Texas.
we do everything big. And but what's funny is when I worked in Georgia, I lived in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, and one of my refrigeration mechanics would come in, and he was from Denton, so I was just kind of like, and he was also like, "You should really come to Denton." I was like, "I didn't leave anything in Texas I need to go back for right now," you know. But yeah, I was a single mom, and I was knocking back a pretty good living, but I couldn't afford travel at that time. So I was just like, "Well, thank you so much. And if I ever get the opportunity, I will." And now I wish I could go. But
Oh,
he was a
you should
very
come
pro
out and
Denton.
join us. Come out and join us in October. We would
I
love to
might
have
just
you,
do that.
Kat, and you can investigate with us. That would be
I
great.
would have fun with that
You
because,
would.
you know, I know that Teal has kind of stepped away from the paranormal right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, because they have a lot of family issues happening right this red hot minute. But
Mhm. And
you
her
know,
health. It's her health
her
too.
health and
Yeah.
Baron's health, and
Yeah.
you just cover everybody when you pray for them. And
Yeah.
it's a hard time. And she's always so positive and just precious, and she is one of the best psychics I have ever known.
Oh,
And spirit workers, energy workers.
can I
And
tell you
I'm
a
just,
story when you're done? I want to tell you a story
I'm done.
about what
Tell me.
she did. What she
Tell me.
did. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
ready.
I mean, just crazy. She is one of the most gifted psychics I think I've ever
Yes,
met.
she is. It's really bizarre.
Yes, and spot on. So,
Yes, it is. Every time.
yes, she is one of the best. And but this is what happened, Kat. Got a new TV. And I'm sitting there looking at the TV, and I want to take a picture and send it to a friend and say, "Look at my TV. I got a brand new TV." And it was one of those big ones. So I took a
Right.
picture of it, and I look at the picture that I'm getting ready to send. And in the picture, I can see a figure, like a shadow, but it's obviously a person.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what is that? And I even turn around to look behind me, and I'm thinking, what is that? So I bring the picture up closer, and I'm examining it, and it's a man. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to send this to Teal, and I'm going to ask Teal what what she sees and what she thinks. So I didn't tell
Yep.
her anything. I just sent the picture. I said, Teal, I want you to look at this picture and tell me if you see something, and if you do, what do you think it is? Or who do you think it is? And I sent it to her, and she texted me back and she says, "You got a man in there." I said, "I knew it. I knew it." And she says, "Yeah, and it's a young man." And she says, almost like maybe in late teens. Um, and she says, his name is Jimmy. I said, "Wow, you even have a name?" And she said, "Yeah, he told me his name is Jimmy." And I said, "Oh my gosh, there is no way." And she said, "Do you know of any Jimmy that lives near you or around you?" And I said, "No, I don't." And um, she says he was kind of heavily involved in drugs. He was kind of known in the neighborhood to dabble in it, and had that reputation of doing drugs and buying and selling or dealing or whatever. And I said, Teal, I have no earthly clue who this would be. I don't know. And so she said, "Well, that's who's in your house." And I said, "Okay, well, let me find out from my roommate, and I'll get back with you." And she said, "Okay." So my roommate comes in and I said, "Hey, Dale," I said, "I have a question for you." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you remember anybody around here by the name of Jimmy?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, a kid next door, his name was Jimmy." I said, "No way. Right next door." He said, "Yeah, he lived right next door." And he said, "Used to come over here as a kid." And he says he kind of came from a dysfunctional family and he liked coming over here because my family was like the Beaver Cleaver type family. And
Right.
he said, and he always liked coming over here because of that type of environment. And it was settled and people he felt safe and more
Yeah.
loved in this environment. And he said, but my mom didn't like for me to hang out with him. And I said, "Oh, why is that?" He said, "Because he was known for being in drugs or something like that." I nearly fell off my chair.
I would never bet against her. I would never bet against her.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't wait to get back to Teal to tell her, "Girl, you were right on. You were right on with that." And I told her, I called her and I said, "I'm not texting this to you. I'm calling you." And I called her and I told her, "You were right, Teal." I said, "There was a boy next door and named Jimmy and he was into drugs." And I said, "But I want to know, why is he here?" She says, "Well, he's here. He's in your house because that was his safe spot. He liked that air. He liked that home because of the environment and how safe he felt and how
Yeah.
wonderful it made him feel." And she says, he wants to stay. And she says, "Are you good with him staying?" And I said, "Well, I don't mind him staying as long as he doesn't let me know he's here. I don't want to hear him. I don't want to see him. I don't want him moving stuff." I said, "If he can,
But I don't
if
want him playing a Victrola.
that's right." And I
Right.
said, "But," I said, "he is welcome to stay as long as he lives harmoniously in this house." And I said,
Right.
"But if he can't do it, I want him gone." I said,
Yeah.
"Because I don't want a spirit in here that's going to cause or wreak havoc, that's going to scare me, that's going to scare my family, going to scare my friends, my pets. No, mm-mm,
Yeah.
no, no, because my home is my sanctuary. And this is my safe spot.
Yeah.
And this is where I come to unwind. I don't want turmoil."
Nope.
And
And
so
especially turmoil if it's got oh, I just kicked everything around. Sorry about that. But if it's the turmoil that some spirits can wreak, it can be really, I mean, what you've described so far has been kind of placid, but that can turn on a dime if you've got a disgruntled or a deficient spirit, right?
that's right. And I can tell you another story where that happened to my partner, Dale. Um, it happened at the Jefferson Palace Hotel. And I've been going to the Jefferson Palace Hotel for many, many years. It is my all-time favorite hotel. I love it over all the other hotels, and I just love going there. And being a paranormal investigator, it is the most haunted hotel on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Something's going to happen in that hotel, regardless. And so, since I've been going there quite a bit and doing a lot of investigations with the owner and his wife, they're also ghost hunters, Pam and Jeremy Jones, and they own the hotel, and they're very. He makes paranormal equipment, paranology. And I have some of his equipment and absolutely love it. And they have been on several shows, national shows about the hotel, because of the paranormal activity that occurs there. So my partner and I, Dale, we went to the Jefferson Hotel and we were going to stay in the doll room. Well, the doll room is the most infamous room in the hotel besides room 19. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But the doll room is the least rented room because it's got hundreds and hundreds of dolls all over the room, on the ceiling, in the
Oh, wow.
bathroom, under the bed. I mean, they are everywhere. So when you go to sleep
That's
at night,
freaky.
you're going to have all these dolls looking at you. Well, I collect dolls, and I have
No.
a yes, and I have a haunted doll collection, and
Of
so I'm
course
not
you do.
afraid of. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them. And um, so throughout my investigations that I have done, I ran across a very bad spirit there at the hotel by the name of Nick. And Nick, he has a love-hate relationship with me.
Right.
He wants to like me, but he wants to dislike me as well because I'm a school teacher, and I'm a retired school teacher, but I was a school teacher my entire career, and I am a protector of children. Nick was a pedophile when he was alive, and he is still a pedophile in death. And the only thing that we can think of is that Nick is in that hotel and has been there since 1851 when the hotel was first a cotton gin. It was a cotton factory. And during that time, they hired children to work in the cotton factory. And this was before child labor laws. And they hired these children because they had tiny hands and they could get their hands in between pieces of equipment and reach things that adults with our large hands aren't able to do. So they were very useful in that way.
Yeah.
Well, we think he worked there, and that's how he got access to the children. And so since he knows that I'm a school teacher, and I told him, look, you need to, what you did was wrong. You shouldn't have ever done that. And I said, you need to leave the children alone. And I said, I'm a protector of children, and I don't condone what you did and never will. Well, whenever we would ghost hunt in that room and we would have the spirit box on, and it was nothing but foul language towards me. He would call me every name
Oh, wow.
under the sun. And I'm not even going to say it because I don't want to say those words, but your viewers will know what kind of words he called
Right.
me. Well, my partner didn't like it. He didn't like the stories I told him about Nick. And I told him, I said, Nick might show up. And I said, so I want you to be careful. Well, he said, I'm not afraid of him. And he says, and I don't condone what he did. And he says, I'm gonna tell him, why don't you pick on somebody your own size? Why don't you pick on me? I'm a man. Pick on me instead of innocent women and children. I said, Dale, I said, please don't provoke the spirit. Don't provoke something you can't see. I said, don't do it. And he says, oh, He says, I'm letting him know. And I don't like the way he treats you, and I don't like what he calls you and all those names. And I said, Dale, really, I need you to stop. And he just kind of laughed and said, nah, I'm not afraid of him. Well, later that night, he
Oh,
wakes up. He wakes up and he can't breathe. And he's got something tight around his neck. And he's gasping for air and he's choking and he falls on the floor and he's writhing in pain, and I'm scared to death, and I'm thinking he's having a heart attack or a stroke. I better call 911. That's my first thought. And then it popped in my
Right.
head. I get these messages in my head. Things pop in my head. Nick popped in my
Right.
head. And I yelled, let him go. And he did. And Dale recovered. And Dale said, what in the world just happened to me? I said, you were attacked. And he said, you mean a spirit did that to me? I said, well, what else did it?
Yep.
I said, you're not having a heart attack. You're not having a stroke. I said, you're not choking to death on food.
Yep.
I said, or sleep apnea, which he doesn't have. I said, what else could it be? And I said, you just got attacked by something you provoked. And I said, you don't provoke ever. And on my team, that's one of the things that's a requirement. We don't provoke any spirit because I say, this is my rule. You wouldn't provoke them in life. Why would you provoke them in death?
Yeah.
And we need to respect the dead and respect the spirits that we come in contact with. And even though Nick is a bad spirit, I will still treat him with respect. And I won't entertain him when he gets ugly. If he starts calling me names, I shut him down. Just shut him down.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
there's
the rest of the team knows that too. They've all gotten to know Nick.
well, has he ever done anything else like he did with Dale?
Well, here's another odd story. A couple of weeks later, we I didn't want Dale to be afraid to go to the Jefferson Palace Hotel because that's my favorite hangout. That's my favorite place. And I
Yeah.
said, we're going to go back. And I said, and when we go back this time, I don't want you saying one word. Don't say one word about Nick. I said, I'm not going to bring him up. You don't bring him up. And so this time we stayed in another room, and this room was called the Speakeasy Room. And all the rooms, just about all the rooms at the Jefferson Palace Hotel, they're all themed. Like they've got a clown room and they got an oddity room. And I mean, it's just the coolest place. And I encourage all your visitors to go to Jefferson, Texas and stay at the Jefferson Palace Hotel. It's awesome. And so we're in the speakeasy room. And the cool thing about the speakeasy room, Jeremy, he's such a genius. He built in the floor, you pick up the floor and there's a stairwell, a secret stairwell passage down to the first floor that comes out of an armoire. It is the coolest
Oh my
thing.
gosh.
Yeah, it is so cool. And so we were in that room, and we hadn't said one thing about Nick. We didn't mention him, nothing. And so middle of the night, Dale wakes up and he's saying, I told you. And I look over at him and he's sound asleep. And I'm watching and I'm thinking, what did he just say? And then he said, you know, and I'm still watching and he still sound asleep and yelling this. And he says, I love you. And then he grabs his neck, wakes up out of his sleep, and he starts to choke and gasp, and he's writhing, and he falls off the bed. And I'm just, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening again. And
Oh
Nick
my
was
gosh.
in the room. I could feel him. He was in there. So then when Dale recovered, he said, was that Nick again? I said, Dale, it was. He says, how do you know? I said, well, let me get the spirit box out and I'll let you hear for yourself. So I got the spirit box out and I used necrophonics. And
Right.
we're on this necrophonics app and you never know what's going to come through necrophonics, but it's a great app. So I'm talking and
Yes.
I said, who's in the room with us? And you hear this man say, Nick. And I said, did you attack Dale? Yes. I said, why did you attack him? Hurt. I said, why do you want to hurt him? Kill. I said, why do you want to kill him? I told you. I
I
said,
love you.
you told me what? You know. I know what? I love you. Exactly what came out of Dale's mouth.
Yep.
To the T.
That's so
And
freaky.
yes, and that freaked Dale out because I had already told him what he said in his sleep before this happened. And we were both freaked out. We weren't expecting that at all. Not at all. And when we left there, I said to Nick, Nick, we're not going to do anything disrespectful to you anymore. I said, I would appreciate it if you would leave us alone. I said, I'll respect your space if you'll respect mine and Bill's. And I said, we want to be left alone and we don't want to be bothered. Now, if you want to just be nice, then we can be nice to one another. But I don't want any more of this. I don't want any more attacks. I don't want any more bad language. I don't want any of that. And so during an investigation, I had the flashlight on. I used the flashlight for spirits to communicate. So I had the flashlight on, and I had it ready to communicate. And I said, if somebody, and we're in the doll room where the first attack occurred. I said, if somebody's here, I'd like for you to turn the flashlight on. The flashlight turned on. I said, thank you. Can you turn it off? They turned it off. So then I knew we had something going here. So then I said, is this a spirit that I know? Flashlight came on. And I said, thank you. Can you turn it off? They turned it off. I said, okay, I'm going to take a chance on this. Are you Nick? Flashlight turned on. And I said, okay, thank you, Nick. Turn it off. And then I asked him, will you be friends with Dale? Flashlight didn't come on. I said, I really would appreciate it if you would be friends with him and not have this dislike for him. Didn't come on. I said, I really would appreciate it if you turn the flashlight on. Didn't come on. Then I said, Nick, are you still angry with Dale? And the flashlight came on. So I told Dale, I said, I don't think you'll ever make amends with the spirit.
Yeah.
I said, but my best advice to you is don't entertain him. Don't engage. Don't do anything with him. Just leave him alone. And if he comes through, we'll just say, "Hey, Nick," and then shut him down. I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, he's there. He's not going anywhere.
That is
He's
all
going to
you
be
can
there.
do.
That's all you can do. Yep.
That is probably a real test for a man. I mean, it's a real test for me because I get an attitude when I feel like something is
Yeah.
interfering with my life. I mean,
Mhm.
I have come into my house like Sherman into Atlanta in the past, but
I
it's
love that.
just, well, I mean, but it's so funny because men can't pull that because a they're being manipulated by spirit too, right? And then it's just it's so hard for them to let that go.
Hmm.
And it is totally a testosterone thing. And I find it funny because Mark Volts. Um,
Yeah.
he came to help me with a friend's house in Pensacola, right? My girlfriend Lori was down from Ohio, and we were going to go and have dinner with Mark. And my friend had a problem with one of his houses, and so there were these three little houses built together in little a little strip kind of a thing. It's hard to describe, but my friend had bought one of them, and we knew each other from the dog park, and his dog wouldn't even get out of the truck.
Oh,
He had been in the
wow.
house. Whatever was in there was messing with him in the house. And so it was really bizarre because he was like, I just really need you to come and do what you do. And I was like, well, just so happens a friend of mine has just moved to Pensacola. So, well, Milton. And I will see if he will come with me because he's jam up. And so we went, and Mark came, and I said, their dog won't come in here. That's why we're here. But Lori and I came in here last night, and the energy centers are whacked. So, if you can look at this, I would so much appreciate it. And so he sat there, and he was like, do you want to investigate, or do you want me to fix it? I said, well, I'd like to investigate for a minute first, because he could just go right in.
Right.
And so we did a bit of stuff. I got some stuff, but I was like, I think that we're going to need you to do it. And the interesting thing was, two doors down was another house that had a dog. This dog had gotten to where it was wasting away. It was so unhappy, and they were really worried about him. And so we went. Yeah. So Mark came down to he told him to get Florida water and, cleanse the house, and that would help a lot. And so anyway, so he got down to where we were, and he was like, I'm just going to channel him. We'll find out. Y'all can ask questions and do what you want to do. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. And it was just fantastic. It was just what needed to happen. But when Mark was channeling Jeannie, his his bone structure in his face changed, his hair changed.
Oh,
He kept
wow.
falling over, and he just kept tossing that hair back off of his face, just, and I'm sitting there looking at him, asking questions, and he's being surly with me. He is just surly. He is just saucy. And, the guy said that the reason he was in the house was that friends of his lived there, and he got in a fight in a bar down.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was killed. He said, and and in the course of the description, he was like, and I'm not getting up, and I don't know why I'm not getting up. So I just ran back to where his friends were.
Right.
And they had been prostitutes because, that period of but that was the only safe place he knew. And
wow.
He had his picture was on the post office wall.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, and that picture is not right. And I'm like, why isn't it right? He said, I'm not black.
Oh.
I'm so dark in that picture. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, that's the description they could get. They just go with what they're told. I mean, I'm just whatever, right? Because meanwhile, I'm tripping because this is not Mark talking to me, and he doesn't look like Mark.
Oh, my goodness.
Good Lord. So,
that's
and
crazy.
Then he kept turning off the video camera. I mean, that was my first time to be around somebody channeling like that.
Wow. That is crazy.
If you're going to go big or go home, right?
That's right. Well,
So
I've never experienced that. And
it's
so,
true.
wow, that's probably something I would like to experience, at least one time. Never
To see
have. And
it is
I'm,
cool.
oh, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Visual is astounding. And
Wow.
the fact that I mean, like his brow area, because Mark has a sharp face,
Yeah.
and the brow area changed, the jawline changed. It was like wider here,
Oh my
and I'm
God.
sitting there, and he keeps turning my video camera off, but I do have video because it would film before he would turn it off. But I mean, it was just like finally I just put my camera down because it was mood. So that's the only time I've ever
Wow.
seen a spirit that I felt like could do what Nick was doing to Dale.
Right.
I mean, if I had not seen that, I would probably think, oh, there's no way that happened. It happened. I'm positive that what you're
And I,
describing completely happened because that
yes,
spirit could have done anything. And
yes. And I absolutely 100% believe it. And,
yeah.
it kind of sounds like, now this wasn't channeling, but this was, an experience that I had with a guardian angel. Um,
Oh, really?
and and it was really quite remarkable when I when I every time I tell this
Cool.
story because um, it it really changed my life and so what happened was I was a teenager. I was a senior in high school, and I was living with my military family in Darmstadt, Germany, and being a military brat, there wasn't a whole lot of things to do in Germany for military children. So a lot of us would go to the base and we would go to the movies. And sometimes we would go and see the same movie 3 or 4 times because there wasn't anything else to do. We did have an American Youth Center, but then that got boring, and so the movies, that was our thing. And so we would go to the movie theater, and then being teenagers, we didn't want to follow the rules about staying on the right path. We would take a shortcut back home through the woods. And there was a path through the woods that had been well traveled by military soldiers as well, and it was considered a shortcut from the housing area, the military housing area, to the base. And so it wasn't really scary. Now that I probably now that I'm older, I wouldn't do it because it was in the woods, and it was at nighttime. And we don't think when we're young, when we do things when we're teenagers that we wouldn't do now as adults. And so we took this shortcut, and right by the road, and all we had to do is get past this and the highway to get to the military base. So you could see you could see our housing area right across the street. So we came out of the woods, and there's train tracks there. And then past the train tracks is a little bit of sidewalk, just a tiny bit of sidewalk that separates the train tracks from the highway, where there's lots of traffic, and it's a 2-lane highway, and traffic is just going up and down this road. And we jaywalked all the time, not realizing how much danger we were putting ourselves in. And so we were standing there, and we're on the train tracks, and we're waiting for there to be a break in the traffic to cross and get over to the housing area. And so we're standing there and we're laughing and we're punching each other and kicking each other and horsing around and being silly with each other. And then suddenly this loud, deafening horn sounds. And I turned to look, and there was the train
Oh
within
my
a
gosh.
few feet from me, and I was blinded by the light, a huge round light, and I froze. And I was in the middle of the track. And the rest of them had
Oh
been
my word.
kind of off on the side. And I'm standing there and I'm blinded by this huge, round, bright yellow light. And I froze. I couldn't move. The next thing, Kat, the next thing that happens, I am being picked up and I'm being moved to the other side on that small sidewalk between the highway and the train. And something is hovering over me. And I can't tell what it is, but something's hovering over me and protecting me. And the train goes by, and I can feel the train. I can feel the wind of the train. It's whipping my jacket. I had a jacket on, it was whipping my jacket. I looked up, I could see the blurred faces of the people sitting in the train. You could see them sitting there, but their faces were blurred because of the speed of the train. And I felt this overwhelming peace and calm come over me. And it was like something I'd never experienced. And it was holding me, and I felt protected. And then as soon as the train passed, it let go and it left.
Wow.
And when I was released, I could hear all this crying and screaming, and those cries and screams were coming from my friends who were on the other side of the track that
And they thought
got
you were dead.
away. They thought I had died. They thought I had been hit and dragged, and they thought I was gone. And that's
Yeah.
why they were yelling and screaming. And when they saw me, they couldn't believe it. And they come racing up to me and they put their arms around me and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What did you do? How did you get away? How did you get out of there? What did you do?" And I said, "Someone picked me up." And they said, "Who?" I said, "I don't know, but somebody picked me up that instant and moved me over to the other side of the railroad track." And they said, "We didn't see anybody." I said, "Well, somebody picked me up." I said, "I didn't, it was not humanly possible for me to have moved out of the way of that train and make it to the other side had it not been my guardian angel that did that to me."
Yeah.
And my guardian angel saved my life. I shouldn't be here because of that. And I still think about that. And now that I'm older, I run this like a film in my head all the time. And I can still see my friends. I can still see me. I can still remember the sounds and the whipping of the train and the people's blurred faces in the windows. And it changed my life. And that's when I realized guardian angels do exist. They're there. And I was saved by
It's so
one.
powerful. That is the most beautiful story, though, because
Yeah.
I've never had that experience. And I just can't even fathom. I mean, I have guardian angels because,
Hmm.
they'll every so often talk, but to
Hmm.
actually be saved like that,
Hmm.
that's the
Yes.
coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yes. And, I'm not a psychic, but I do get things, images and things in my head, visions of things. And I keep getting this vision, this image of my grandfather. And my grandfather was not alive at the time. And for some reason, I'm thinking that my grandfather is my guardian angel, and my grandfather came and saved me that day. I don't have anything else to go by, but the feeling
Sheltered you
I
from the
felt,
train, besides
yeah,
moving you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that warmth and that protection and that safe and feeling that I had, that just took every fear out of me. And I honestly believe that it was my grandfather that was there that day that saved me from getting hit by the train. And think of how devastating that would have been, because here we were, a military family stationed in Darmstadt, Germany. My daddy was military. My mother was a school teacher. I had a little sister. And think of how that would have changed all our lives had my grandfather or whoever my guardian angel was hadn't come in and done that night. So it was quite remarkable. And even after it happened for days, that my friends would say, gosh, I don't know how that happened. How did that happen? There was nobody there. And we couldn't explain it. We couldn't.
Somebody was there.
Somebody was there. Absolutely. And I've got, I won't go into it right now, but maybe another time I can tell you about two other times that my guardian angel has saved me, where I was in some pretty bad spots. And only my guardian angel could have got me out of there. There was just no other way. And so I'll talk about that at another time on another show. It's just too long to go into, but I kind of gave you the brief version of this one, the quick version.
Well, can I ask you a question about the others too?
Huh?
Was the energy the same with the other ones that came later? Was the energy the same?
Yeah, it was the same. One, without going into it completely, um, one was, I had gotten on a dune buggy with a man I didn't know, and he was at a park and he was giving all the teenagers rides on his dune buggy, and they'd all ridden on it, and I wanted to ride on it, and he said, "Well, come on, I'll take you for a ride." And this was in El Paso, Texas, and he took me out of the park, and he drove me way out past city limits out into the desert. And I was out there with this man that I had no clue who he was, didn't know his name. And this man had taken me out into the desert, and I could see the lights of El Paso off in the distance. And we were the only two out there, and nobody would have heard my screams. Nobody would have known what happened to me, um, except for my friends who saw me get on the dune buggy and go for the ride, but they didn't know he was going to take me out of the park, and he took me out of the park, and I heard a voice in my ear, and it said, "You're okay." And I started telling this person, this man, I started telling him how hard my life was. I wasn't having a hard life, but I had to go into survival mode, and
Absolutely.
I started telling him about how hard I'd had it, and that, my life hadn't been great. And I even went in and said, I'm having a hard time in high school, and I don't have very many friends, and the boys don't like me, and I just painted a really sad sob story. And I told him, I said, but I wanted I wanted to talk to you about it because, I didn't want to talk to anybody else about it because I didn't want anybody else to know. And I said, and I wanted to get your advice on what you think I should do. So I personalized myself with him, and I made him feel like I trusted him, that I felt safe with him, and that I felt that his advice meant everything to me. And I get choked up thinking about this because I was in a really bad place with this man, and he hadn't said a word at all to me. When I got on that dune buggy and he drove me out into the desert, he never said a word to me. I did all the talking. And then when I finally said, I'm so glad you brought me out here. This is so beautiful. And look at the beautiful mountain range of El Paso, and look at the beautiful lights. And I said, this is so peaceful. This is like being in heaven. It's like God. And that man said, you're absolutely right. And he started up that dune buggy and he took me back. So I was protected by my guardian angel, because my guardian angel was the one told me, you're going to be all right. And I think my guardian angel said, you better start talking right now and make this man feel like that he is a human, and maybe he hasn't had the best life, and maybe he is a bad man, but you might be able to change him.
Help.
Who knows? Mm-hmm. And
you did change him.
I hope I did. I never saw eyes on him again after that. And when he took me back to the park, my friends, they said, where on earth did you go? You've been gone for hours. And I said, you're not going to believe this. I said, that man took me all the way out past city limits, out into the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert. And they said, oh my gosh. And I said, yeah, I'm lucky to be here. I said, because I really don't know what his intentions were, because he didn't do that to any of the other teenagers that he drove around in the park. He just drove around the park with them, but when I got on, he left the park. He had me and he left the park.
That was such a blessing, man. That's just unbelievable.
Right. And that again was my guardian angel, because I heard the voice, you're going to be okay. And I trusted that voice. I said, yeah, I am, I'm going to be okay. And I talked to him about my daddy being in the military, and talked about my mama being a school teacher, and how I had a baby sister. And I made him see me as a person, and a person with feelings. And it saved my life. I honestly believe it, because why else would he have taken me out there? He didn't take anybody else.
No reason. Yeah.
Right. So that's
your life.
Yeah, he saved my life. Yeah. So to your viewers, guardian angels do exist. 100%. 100%. They're there. They're watching over you. So.
And that felt like your same energy from the train.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Every time, and then the third one, it happened on Caddo Lake. I was in a, I don't know how to swim, and a friend taught me into going canoeing, and I did.
That was a good thing to do before you learned how to swim.
I didn't want to go canoeing, but I thought, well, if I put a life jacket on, I'll be okay. And a storm whipped up while we were on Caddo Lake, and I was, and the canoe flipped. It flipped, and because we went through a really rough rapid, and here the weather had changed suddenly, and it was overcast, stormy, rain was coming down, and the rapids had gotten uh, faster because of the wind.
Yes,
And I was scared to death because I thought, what's
for
going to
sure.
happen? Because I don't know how to swim, but thank God I've got the life jacket on. And and it flipped, and I had to hang on to a tree that had fallen into the river, and I had to hang on to that tree because if I had let go, it would have swept me under the tree, and I would have drowned. And I was hanging onto the tree, and the canoe kept hitting me on my back. It was overturned, and the waves and the wind, it kept hitting
Uh-huh.
me on my back. And I didn't know how I was going to get it to away from me because it was hurting me, and it
Right.
was causing me more difficulty hanging on to that trunk of that tree that was submerged in the water, that was actually keeping me from being um, under the water, swept under the water. And um, and suddenly a woman appeared in the water. There was a girl in the water, and she had no difficulty swimming in those rapids. And I turned and looked, and there she was. And I said, can you please help me? I said, I can't swim. And I said, I don't want to drown. Can you please help me? She never looked at me. She never answered me. She never said a word to me. And she moved that canoe off of me and never saw her again. And when I was finally out of the water, and I said, where is that girl that was in the rapids that moved the canoe off of me? They said, there was no girl in there. I said, yeah, there was a girl in there, and she moved the canoe off of me. And they said, no, you were the only one in the water. It wasn't anybody else. I
Wow,
said,
girl.
was somebody moved? I said, I saw a girl, and my first thought was she was real. That was my first thought. And I was afraid that she got swept under and we had
Yeah.
a missing person, and
Yes.
she had drowned. And I kept insisting, no, there's a missing person. There's a missing person. There's a woman in here. She got the canoe off of me. She may be drowned now. I said that they kept looking at me like they thought I was crazy. They said, no, ma'am, there was nobody in this water but you. And we were trying to get you out.
Wow.
So, but that's the short version. And there's more to it. But
We'll see.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
but
revisit this because she was
yeah,
what?
she was the guardian angel for me at that time. And,
Hmm.
and then I find out later. And this is what, I have a hard time talking about this because it really um, makes me emotional. But the girl that I think saved me was a girl that had drowned in that same area 5 years earlier. She was a student at a university or a school, and they were on a senior trip or something, and a canoe flipped over. She was in the canoe that flipped over, and she drowned.
Wow.
And so I don't know if it was her, but where did that girl come from? And there was,
And go. Yeah.
yeah. And then when I find out later that there was a drowning victim 5 years before, I'm thinking, was that her? Is she like
No,
the
I
protector of
wonder if
that
you could
area?
probably. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could find an old clipping from her incident.
I have tried to research that, and I can't find anything. Now, I did find something about a girl that drowned 5 years prior to this on a school outing, and her canoe did flip over, but she didn't die. According to the article, she didn't die there. She
Right.
died en route to the hospital. So I don't know. I don't know anything more about that except that
You should
they
find
pulled
her
her out.
obituary.
They pulled her out and she was alive at the time. And then
Yeah.
apparently she passed either en route or when they got to the hospital. And so
I bet
I
if you
don't
found her
know.
obituary, it would be her.
Hmm. But I'm
Because,
assuming it's her. I'm assuming that
yeah,
she was the one that got that canoe off of me. So, but again, I briefly told those stories because I know we're running out of time, and but uh, I want your viewers to know that I'm a very sound person, and I'm not prone to tell stories off the wall or anything like that, and I'm certainly not looking for attention. And I rarely share these stories about my
I don't
guardian
think you
angel
are.
because they're very personal to me. But I
They
do want
are.
people to know that they are there. They are there and they protect you. They watch over you and they're real.
And, I think that I have not, I have lived through things that were just stupid things that I should not have. But my granddad died when I don't even know how young I was. But, and I've always felt like that person was my person, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I get, I get that they're there. I don't doubt that they're there.
mhm,
But I feel like what a blessing that was that he was there to and was and just moved you and
mhm,
held you and protected you as that train was going by.
mhm. Yep.
That to me was such a loving, caring caregiver of you.
Mhm, mhm,
That had to
mhm,
be a familial relationship. So I agree with you.
mhm.
I think that's totally who that was.
Yeah,
And
I do believe it too. And my grandfather passed when I was 7 years old. I was in the second grade, and he was a judge, and and being from Texarkana, Texas. When my grandfather died, he laid in state at his home, and people came to the home to pay their respects. And so you could see him in the den, the living room, and it was very beautiful with flowers everywhere. And he's laying in his coffin, and there's a kneeling bench next to the coffin. And when I was only in the second grade, I was able, where I slept, I could look in there and see him because they kept a light on him at night. And people from all over came every day to see him and to pay their respects and to pray. And he was a well liked judge. And when he passed, my grandmother took over his position, and then she got reelected, and in his position afterwards, and held it until her death. And but I remember my grandfather laying there, and another thing I did, I I when I was a child, I was only, like I said, 7 years old. I went in there and with another cousin of mine who was about close to my age, and we went in there and we kneeled on the kneeler and looked at him because we were curious. And I remember reaching out because I wanted to feel what his face felt like. I wanted to see what that was on his face. And I reached out and I touched him on the cheek right there. And when I
yeah,
did, it left my fingerprint and an indentation of my fingerprint on his face.
right.
And I remember I was horrified by what I saw that I had done. And I thought, I am going to be in so much trouble because there's no, and I'm only 7 years old, and I'm thinking,
Right.
they're
That's
all going to
understandable.
know I
Yeah.
touched him. They're going to know I touched my grandfather. And that, that stayed with me and still does to this day. I remember doing that as a child. And so maybe that me touching him on the cheek, maybe that, I don't know. It
Solidified that connection.
makes you wonder how life happens and what happens in the afterlife. And, it's just a lot of mysteries, and people will
Right.
ask me as a paranormal investigator, one of the main things that most of the questions I get are, why are their children earthbound? Why are their spirit children here? And why are they earthbound? I told him, I really don't know the answer to that. Only God knows that. I said, I can assume, we can all make a good guess. I said, but really, only God knows that. And that's one of the mysteries of life. And we'll find out when we get to the other side. But right
Or we won't,
now,
because we won't care at that point. I mean, you know,
that's right.
but and that's what gets me is people are always so, you know, funky about stuff sometimes. And it's like, it's okay because we're going to know at some point,
Yeah.
you know, good, bad, or
Hmm.
indifferent, we're going to be
Right.
there too, you know.
Right. Right.
And nobody wants to really seem to think about that about themselves, right? But
Exactly. Yeah. But
I'll never know that.
no,
Yeah.
I'll never know that, and I'm certainly not going to pretend I know. And I'm very honest with
Yeah.
people. I don't know. I don't
But
know.
you will.
Now, well, but we will. But right now, we don't. And I do. I just tell them. I said, and this is what I've heard from other paranormal investigators, and I've heard from psychics that some of them are earthbound. I know for older people, adults, they're earthbound because of unfinished business. They feel like they need to stay back to take care of a loved one that they're worried about. I know when my mother passed, she came back to see me because I took her death so horribly. I still not over it. It's been 6 years, and I'm still not over her death. And I don't think I ever will be, honestly. But my mother did visit me in a dream, and it was very real. And she spoke to me, and she told me I'm okay. And she says, I don't want you to worry about me. I'm okay. And so,
That's sweet.
yes, and that really made me feel so much better when my mother, and I mean, it felt like it was real, like I could have reached out and touched her. And I remember begging her not to leave me again, because she told me, she says, I have to go. I can't stay. I have to go. And I begged her not to leave me again, and she says, I'll be okay, Jeannie. She says, it's all good. I'm gonna be okay. And then she left. And um so yeah, I did get a visit from my mother. And that's another thing that's real. Your loved ones will come back and and visit you. And I did. I got, that was the best visit ever, was getting a visit from my mother and knowing she's okay.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But that's a question that a lot of people will ask me, and especially people that aren't into the paranormal, but they're curious and they come to events and go ghost hunting, and they'll want to know, excuse me, they'll want to know, why are their ghosts earthbound? And then you've got some people that say, well, you've got tricksters that are pretending, and you've got to be careful because some of these have bad intentions. They could
And
be
we're back.
demonic. Yeah. And they said
So
they can mimic.
we have Jeannie still frozen. I'm back. There she is. We both
Yeah.
got for a little while there. So
Oh, okay. I don't know
that was
what part you
definitely
didn't
something
hear.
different. Yeah. But,
I don't know.
It could be worse. We could still be frozen and be gone. And, you know, I lost my earbud connection, but that's okay because I can hear you.
Oh,
And
good,
as long
good.
as you can hear me too, we're
I
good.
can hear you just fine, Kat.
So perfect.
Yeah.
But, it's just so funny because sometimes things work out that way. And we've glitched about 3 times so far, but we keep coming back
Oh,
because,
yeah.
you're from
Never throw
Texas
in
and
the
I'm from the
towel.
South too, and it wouldn't
That's
dare
right.
not come back.
That's right. We don't give up, do we?
So, not ever. Well, is there anything that you want to leave people with? We got about 2 minutes just to tell them where to find you, or
Well, here's my shirt, and I want you to
yes,
please,
Beyond the
please,
Veil
please,
Paranormal.
please support my team. And we are called Beyond the Veil Paranormal Research Group. And we are out of Texas, and we do have a Facebook page. Please, please, please go and
Yes,
and like us and follow us. We have posted some of our recent paranormal investigations, and I have posted some stuff that's quite remarkable, and you need to please go listen
yes.
to it and and
You
support
won't be
us.
sorry if you do.
And
It's good
please
stuff.
come see us in Denton for October. We'd love to see you out there for Halloween.
Yes.
Kat, thank you
On
so
to the
much for
next one.
having me on. You're such a pleasure, and my prayers are for your daughter-in-law. She's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. So just
Thank
rest
you.
assured that God is watching over her and your family. So you're going to be good.
Thank you. I am so appreciative of everything. I appreciate your time for being here. I appreciate you sharing, and I didn't really mean to push you to share all of your stories, but I'm glad that you did because they matter, and I'm sure that they are going to touch and change someone because that's why they happened, is for you to share
Mhm.
them,
Yeah,
and we can talk about them again next time.
I'd love that,
So
Kat. I would
I
love that,
just
and thank you. And I hope that your
Oh,
viewers
thank you too.
found
And for
everything
everyone
that was.
listening,
Yes, thank you. I hope your viewers
what were
will
you
be
going
able
to
to get
say? I'm
something
sorry.
out. I hope your viewers will enjoy this and get something out of it. And I appreciate all of them for listening to us tonight. Thank you.
Well, it's really a blessing, I think, for them to be able to hear what you shared because it matters so much. You know, I
Thank
mean,
you.
people are walking around without faith, without without comfort, and I think that that's such a big deal to know that. I mean, you don't have to be a Pollyanna. I've been called a Pollyanna before. I don't see where that comes from, but it's you have to you have to have faith in tomorrow. You have to have something that's going to help you. And people
Mhm.
ask me why I'm a paranormal investigator, and I find it. I don't have creepy experiences. I have interesting
Mhm.
experiences. I've actually pissed off a ghost to the point that we had to come to an understanding after the fact. I mean, it's just really, they're human
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
understand the human condition, and they can help you understand the human condition too,
Mhm.
if that's what you need, if that's what they're there for. And we've got so much angst and anger and frightened people, and we've got acting out in places. The our political system is acting out from every side imaginable, Everybody is
Mhm.
acting out like they've got something to prove.
Mhm.
And, we're all human. We all have good decisions and bad decisions and scary things and things that make us bow up. But we're all human.
That's right.
And I feel like with the paranormal, that we can remember they already see what is going to be the end of things for them, and they're still coming back.
Mhm.
So maybe
I
the
agree.
state that we live in isn't so bad if they're still coming back
Right.
to experience it through us.
Mhm.
So, or to
Yes,
save
and
our butts when we do stupid stuff. I have been saved a time or two too. So I'm not going to go into all those stories right now because we'd be here for 3 weeks.
well,
But
I would love for
I
you to
just,
share them with me sometime. I would. I would love it.
I will do that. I will do that because some of them were just about that, you know, ill thought out. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and I was protected too. So
And
that does happen.
yeah, it
You know,
does. It certainly
fools,
does.
drunks, and children
That's exactly
are
right.
always protected,
Keep the
apparently.
faith. Keep the faith. Always.
Yeah. Yes. But
Thank you.
well,
Thank you,
we're gonna
Kat.
have to go. But thank you so
Thank
much. I had
you.
so much
Thank
fun with
you.
you.
Oh, I had a
We'll have to do
blast.
this again.
We
Yes.
will. We will. And I
Yes.
love it. And you are so awesome.
Oh, thank
And
you. You
thank
are too.
and I want to give a shout out to Teal.
Absolutely. Talking about awesome.
We love
That's
you,
awesome.
Teal.
We do love you, Teal. So we will be back. I'll be back with you on Sunday for Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and we have a new edition. So I might be sharing a story or two, but it's going to be a great show, guest and everything, right? So y'all come then, and we will see you same cat time, same cat channel. Y'all come back. Good night.